Nicky Pardo wakes up every morning and asks God for permission to die. If the gun clicks, he lives. But today, his past has finally caught up with him. These thugs thought they were bullying a broken homeless man. They didn't realize they just targeted a lethal legend who has nothing left to lose. Our story begins in a harsh desert where we see a man named Scorpion. In front of him, another man named Pardo is sitting on his knees. Scorpion kicks him and leaves him there to die in the brutal heat. But he hands him a strange gift, his revolver, loaded with just one bullet. The grim instruction. If Pardo is dying of hunger and thirst, he can shoot himself to end the pain. Pardo wakes up from this terrifying flashback dream. He immediately goes to church, just like he does every single day. Pardo used to be a deadly hitman for the Mexican cartel. But after the death of his wife, he completely abandoned his old life and his country, moving to Spain. He is now a deeply religious man who attends church daily. After returning from church, he has a twisted ritual. He loads one bullet into his revolver, spins the chamber, a game of Russian roulette, and pulls the trigger. He truly believes that one day, that bullet will finally end him, and God will punish him for his terrible sins. Until that day, his purpose is to help the helpless. One day, he spots 4 white skinheads aggressively harassing a girl. Pardo doesn't hesitate. He beats those 4 guys within an inch of their lives. Just watching Pardo's speed and technique, you instantly know how experienced he is. He is so good, he can kill anyone even without a gun. And because of his deadly skills and his desire for redemption, the entire crime world knows him by one name, the Redeemer. Pardo gathers the weapons of those beaten boys, leaves them at the church, and drives out of the city. He never stays in one place for long. He is constantly moving. By the time he reaches the next city, it's nighttime, and the church is closed. So, he checks into a hotel, ensuring he can be at church first thing in the morning. A housekeeping girl named Antonio notices him because he's a new face in the city. The next morning, Pardo reaches the church before it even opens. That's when he sees a man named Augustine hiding a mysterious bag inside the church. Pardo immediately starts following him. In the next scene, we meet Piedra, the leader of the Spanish mafia. He's meeting with his American boss, Braddock, and his Spanish translator. Piedra informs them that some of his drug money is missing. Braddock is new to this country and doesn't even speak the language, but he has invested millions of dollars in the local drug economy, making him the boss of all Spanish gang leaders, including Piedra. Braddock, using his translator, demands his money back within 24 hours. He also orders Piedra to kill whoever committed the theft. Piedra's 4 men quickly catch Augustine near the beach, suspecting him of the theft, and begin beating him badly. Pardo watches all this from a distance. After beating Augustine without getting any information, the men warn him and leave him there. Pardo then steps in and helps him up. Augustine asks Pardo to drop him off at a friend's house. When they arrive, Pardo sees that the house belongs to Antonio, the housekeeping girl. Antonio is Augustine's neighbor, and she tends to his wounds. She also has a 10-year-old son who is battling cancer. Antonio fears the men behind Augustine might come to her house and hurt her and her son, so she pleads with Pardo for help. Pardo calmly assures her, "Those 4 men will never bother you again." Pardo goes back to his own house, performs his dangerous ritual, Russian Roulette, and, when he survives, he takes it as a sign from God. He goes to the beach boating station to find the men who beat Augustine. They attack Pardo, but he starts breaking them, one by one. He fights as if he's fought thousands of times, and none of them can even touch him. Augustine watches Pardo from a distance and is completely shocked by his sheer power. Pardo finishes the fight brutally, cutting one of the men's heads off with a boat motor. When the fight is over, he gathers all their weapons onto a board, gives them to the church, and apologizes for the violence. Returning from the church, Pardo sees people openly carrying automatic weapons on the road and in the city. He realizes that the men he just beat were not local goons but actually part of the Spanish mafia. He passes Piedra on the way to his hotel, but since they don't have a personal grudge yet, they simply pass one another. He goes to Antonio's house and confronts Augustine. "I want to know the truth. Why is the mafia after you, and what did you hide in the church that day?" Augustine confesses that he stole money from a drug deal boat belonging to the gangster Piedra. He hid the entire bag in the church, which is why they are hunting him. Pardo tells him, "I can save your life, but whoever owns that money, we will have to return it." Pardo puts Augustine in the trunk of a car and takes him to a seaside cave. He tells him he will be safe there, as not many people know about the location. Leaving Augustine there, Pardo goes to Piedra's headquarters, completely unarmed. Piedra is not initially afraid of Pardo, but when his men search Pardo, they see a massive tattoo on his back. Piedra immediately realizes that this is the Redeemer, the legend the Mafia often talks about. All his men instantly point their weapons at Pardo. Pardo tells them he didn't come to fight, he wants to make a deal with Piedra. Pardo offers to return Piedra's stolen money, but in exchange, Piedra must let the thief, Augustine, live. Piedra knows that fighting the Redeemer would cost him dearly, so he tells his men to keep Pardo at gunpoint while he takes 2 men and goes to the church to retrieve the money. The plan is to let Pardo go once they have the money. But when they check the church, the money is gone. Enraged by this deception, Piedra orders his men to kill Pardo. But Piedra's men cannot handle Pardo's skill. Pardo snatches one man's handgun and begins shooting them. In a prolonged, fierce battle, he kills every single one of Piedra's men. By the time Piedra returns, Pardo has already left, and his entire crew has been massacred. Seeing this slaughter, Piedra rushes to his boss, Braddock, and tells him everything through the translator. Meanwhile, the hitman named Scorpion, who has been following Pardo's movements by tracking the churches in different cities, finally reaches the city. His sole mission in life is to kill Pardo. When Pardo returns to the cave, he finds Antonio and Augustine with the money bag. He is furious, snatching the bag from Antonio. Antonio pleads with him, explaining that Augustine stole the money because she needs it for her son's cancer treatment. Pardo ignores her, takes the bag, and leaves in the car. But on the way, he stops the car. He is suddenly overwhelmed by flashbacks of his past. He sees his pregnant wife dying right in front of him, and he remembers being left to die by Scorpion in the desert. He turns the car around, goes back to the cave, and gives the money to Antonio. That evening, he performs his ritual in the cave. Augustine and Antonio are terrified watching him pray and put the loaded revolver to his head. Pardo tries to enter the city again, but Piedra and his men are on high alert, ready to shoot him the moment they see him. Piedra finds the hotel room where Pardo was staying. He takes Pardo's prayer cloth and belongings and brings them to his boss. Braddock's translator explains that this stuff belongs to the Redeemer, the legendary hitman who people say can't be killed. Braddock dismisses the superstition, calling in his best fighter, Icaro, and tasking him with killing the Redeemer. Braddock assures Piedra and the translator that Icaro can kill anyone, so they shouldn't worry about Pardo. On the other side, Antonio sends her son to a boarding school for safety. Pardo prepares the weapons of the men he killed for the upcoming fight, instead of taking them to the church. He goes into the city, keeping a close eye on Piedra and his men. But this time, Icaro, the skilled killer, is waiting for him. Icaro spots Pardo, opens fire, and Pardo immediately starts running. Pardo manages to kick Icaro's gun away, but Icaro keeps fighting, engaging him in a brutal, hand-to-hand MMA-style combat. Icaro is fast and shocks Pardo with his skill. Pardo fights him for a long time and finally lands a major blow, defeating him. As Icaro tries to reach for his fallen gun, Pardo finishes him off with a lethal flip kick. When it gets dark, Pardo returns to the cave. Antonio feeds him dinner and suggests that he must have lost a loved one to be like this, but Pardo doesn't share anything with her. Pardo remembers the exact day his wife died, and the story goes into a harrowing flashback. Pardo is tied up and tortured. Scorpion has tied Pardo's pregnant wife to a table right in front of him. Scorpion repeatedly tortures her with rats and surgical equipment, which tragically causes her a miscarriage. Scorpion then gives Pardo a horrifying choice. Your wife's death is final, he says, but if you want her to die painlessly, you will have to shoot her. Otherwise, I will keep hurting her until my last breath. Pardo is crying, but he sees in his wife's eyes that she also wants a painless death. He is forced to pull the trigger and shoot his own wife. The story returns to the present. Scorpion has now arrived in Pardo's city. He immediately understands that Pardo is fighting the local mafia when he sees Pardo's abandoned weapons, and Scorpion starts killing them, too. Piedra finds a dead body on the road with a bullet shell that has Scorpion's signature mark. He runs to Braddock, who is in a meeting, and tells him that now both the Redeemer and Scorpion are in the city. He explains that these two are the drug cartel's best killers, and they have a massive, long-standing feud. Piedra is terrified that they are caught in the middle of it. Braddock's translator hears Scorpion's name and panics. He urges Braddock to run away to America, or no one will survive. Braddock is upset by this cowardice and immediately shoots his translator in the head. He tells Piedra and his men that they have plenty of weapons and manpower, so they don't need to run from two killers. Piedra reluctantly agrees. Piedra and his entire group prepare for the final assault. Before Pardo leaves, Antonio stops him and gives him a sign of the cross from the church. She has clearly developed feelings for him. After Pardo leaves, Augustine puts on swim gear, planning to run away through the sea, certain that Pardo will never come back alive. Pardo launches his attack on Piedra's drug-making building, firing 2 handguns. Once inside, he kills a man, snatches his AK rifle, and shoots many people with it. He keeps changing weapons, killing every man in the building who refuses to surrender. Finally, he finds Piedra. Even though Piedra is a tough fighter, Pardo kills him and forces his boss's address out of him, hoping to permanently eliminate the threat to Antonio and Augustine. Meanwhile, Augustine reaches a motorboat floating in the sea. But 2 of Piedra's men spot him near the boat depot and start following him. He runs back towards the cave, but when he reaches the shore, he sees Scorpion waiting there for him. Augustine is captured. Pardo finally reaches Braddock's house. Surprisingly, there is no security. When he goes inside, he finds Braddock dead, shot in the head. Pardo sees a bullet shell and a living Scorpion. He realizes Scorpion beat him there, and then Scorpion strikes Pardo from behind, knocking him unconscious. In his unconscious state, Pardo sees another flashback. Years ago, Pardo had gone to kill Scorpion at his house. Scorpion was with his 7-year-old son. Scorpion, being a killer, senses Pardo's presence and becomes instantly alert. They both start fighting. But when Pardo shoots, Scorpion's son steps forward and is killed by the bullet. Seeing his son dead, Scorpion goes insane with rage. He brutally beats Pardo on the back, tortures and kills his wife, and then leaves Pardo in the desert with a single bullet. Recently, when Scorpion found out Pardo was still alive, he came to Spain to finish him off for good. The story returns to the present. Pardo opens his eyes and finds himself on a beach in front of a church where Scorpion has captured both Antonio and Augustine. Scorpion hands his revolver to Augustine, forcing him to play Russian roulette on his own head. When Augustine refuses, Scorpion shoots Antonio in the leg. When Augustine finally tries to shoot Scorpion with the revolver, Scorpion shoots him in the head, killing him. Next, he forces Antonio to hold the revolver to her head and pull the trigger. This immediately reminds Pardo of his wife's final moments, and he decides he will not let Antonio die in this fight. Just like Augustine, Antonio points the gun at Scorpion instead of herself. As Scorpion turns to shoot her, Pardo hits him with a swift, flanked kick. The 2 legendary fighters begin a vicious hand-to-hand combat. Scorpion is clearly the superior fighter, landing many blows, and Pardo takes a lot of punishment. But Pardo, even while losing, figures out Scorpion's leg movements and fighting style. He finally manages to match him and defeats him. Scorpion collapses to his knees. Antonio, dragging herself, picks up the revolver and hands it to Pardo. But Pardo does not shoot Scorpion. He looks back at his old enemy and apologizes for the death of his son. "I suffer every day in the guilt of your son's death," Pardo says, "and you also gave equal pain to my family, so I can't carry this fight anymore." Pardo then leaves with Antonio, ready to potentially start a new life. Scorpion, remembering his son, takes his own revolver and shoots himself in front of the church, hoping that in death, he will finally be able to meet his son. I hope you guys enjoyed this movie breakdown. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, and keep watching Cinemaned.